A very good morning to everybody. We are continuing our shiur, spiritual growth through the lens of the mystics. We are learning a discourse and we are on page 202 for those who have the discourse in front of them. And we were discussing last week the concept of the invitation through the recitation of the Shema to enter a new realm or a new perception of godliness. We can relate to God as the creator that hides and veils and clothes himself through the laws of nature, that we take for granted godliness, and that we are self-absorbed and feel our own independence and our own existence. Or we can transcend that and relate to God as He is beyond the veil of nature. And that is the invitation that God invites us through reciting the Shema both morning and evening. Morning being a time of revelation, a symbol of revelation. Night being a time of doubt and uncertainty and spiritual darkness. And both periods of our lives, or even both periods of the very same day, because we go through ups and downs as human beings, we have the capacity, the strength, and the ability to be able to transcend the relationship that comes from the physical, from the body, and to enter a new relationship of God, one that is more intimate, not one as the creator, but one as the essence of all life, the only existence, so to speak. And this is, we discussed a little bit last week, the concept of the very birth of the Jewish nation that was, so to speak, born, defying the laws of nature in a miraculous way, showing that our very birth is miraculous. And what is a miracle? A miracle is something that defies the laws of nature. The Jewish people have continually and constantly defied the laws of nature because it is within our nature to defy the law of nature. It is within our nature to defy a simple relationship with God, as God, so to speak, being a power in this world, but rather not just being a power that assists us and helps us, but the very core and essence of everything, that there is nothing else but godliness. Now we will continue along on page 202. We are now 5 lines from the top of page 202. At the last 3 words. The teva, what is nature? Uhamugdar bezman umakom. Nature is something that has natural limitations of time and place. The hamugdar bemakom, that's something that is quantified or classified by time and by place. Umugbal ba'agbalotav has many limitations, is defined by its limitations. V'chen hu bezman shemugbal ba'agbala da'avar hove ve'atid. Similarly, something that is limited and defined and quantified by time has the limitation of either present or something past or something not yet and will be in the future, but not simultaneously. Which means to say that if our perception of godliness is one just limited to time and place, then it has its limitations. Ve'havaya, and this is related to the name of Elokim. We said that the name Elokim has the same numerical value of Hateva, the nature, which means the relationship as God reveals himself in a concealed manner. Just barely the required energy to enliven the world and the required energy for an intellect to perceive that there is a God. But something beyond that, the essence of God is something that is beyond the mind to fathom and to grasp. The mind can fathom that there is such a thing beyond limitation, but cannot relate to it properly, as we will soon see. 3 lines from the bottom of that chapter. The Havaya, And the name of God, the tetragrammaton name, Hu Haya Hove V'Yihye Ke'ehad. He was, he is, and he will be as one, meaning to say that the very name of God, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, contains within it the three Hebrew words, he was, he is, and he will be. An omnipresence. It symbolizes the omnipresence of God, i.e. the way God relates to the world, or a relationship that we can choose if we latch on to that revelation that is governed by the, or symbolized or defined by the name of the tetragrammaton name Hashem, which defies, is not limited to he was, he was, to time and place, but rather he was, he is, and he will be simultaneously. The omnipresence of God, the unlimited nature of God, so to speak, which is a much more intimate relationship. For example, if a person who I am close with, I would invite them in my mind or in my heart, they would feel the vastness and the intensity of my emotion, my love, or my appreciation to that particular person, especially if it's a spouse or a child. But however, being a human being, I am limited to the faculty of speech to express whatever I can. And if I'm united with that spouse or that child, after a lengthy break, a period of time, my emotions get so overwhelmed that I cannot even articulate it in words, and therefore that child will not really know the full extent of my feelings towards them. However, were I to give them a glimpse, an invitation into my mind and into my heart, they would feel the full extent of my emotions or the revelation of that emotion or that thought if I was a teacher, their teacher. This world expresses that limitation of speech, so to speak. However, being the fact, and we will learn this a little bit later, the fact that we have a soul, we have the capacity and the ability to transcend the limitation of, so to speak, speech, and create or chart a new relationship with God, one that enters, so to speak, God's emotions and God's wisdom, so to speak. And this is what we said before, that there are two names of God. There are a few names of God, but the particular name of God that is written in the Shema is Hashem and Elokeinu. The Lord is our God. Our God being our strength, our might, our power, our nature. What we are saying is, the Shema says, is that Hashem is our power, our strength, and our nature, which means that we have it within ourselves the ability to enter a new realm of relationship with Hashem, to feel and to be exposed to the full intimacy, to the inner revelation of godliness, so to speak, which defines time and place, which defines all limitations. Let us continue. Shehu lemala min hamakom ulemala min hazman. The Almighty is omnipresent, omnipotent, He's higher than time, higher than place, etc. V'zehu, and this is the meaning of the verse. Hashem Elokeinu, the Lord our God, meaning to say the tetragrammaton is our power. We said Elokeinu, the name Elokim comes from the word El, which means power, and Elokim is a numerical value of Hateva, which is nature, which means to say that Hashem, the tetragrammaton name, the name that defies and is beyond time and place and nature, etc., is our nature, is our very nature. Is our very strength, is our very power. The Hateva de Israel, that the very nature of the Jewish people, who the Hagbalot, the Zman Umakom, that the Behagbalot, the Bezman Umakom, that despite the fact that we live in the realm of limitation of time and place, i.e. in this physical world, nonetheless, Yamshich, we have the capacity to draw down unlimitedness in the limited vessels that we have. Yamshichu ha'or, will be able to draw down the infinite light, v'hagilui, in a revealed manner, shelemala mizman u'makom, that is transcends time and place. This is a hidush, this is a novelty, this is a very profound concept. What is this concept? The concept is, here we have a vessel, i.e. the body, the world. However great and however vast the world is, it has limitations. The body has limitations, the mind has limitations. The objective of a Jew is to be able to, while reciting the Shema, it means to say unifying the light that transcends the world, which is the infinite light, the Or Ein Sof, with the light that is limited and relative to the world, which is the Or Memale Kol Almim, the world that the light that fills the world in accordance with it and relative to its limitation. In other words, there are two dimensions. There is a dimension of godliness that reveals and creates this physical world. And that is obviously must be in a manner that is very concealing, because otherwise the world will not be able to. Someone's having a nice breakfast there.
Good morning, Rabbi. Yeah, everyone can mute themselves, because even when you don't talk, we still hear everything that's happening around it. The microphone picks it up, so I hope you're enjoying your breakfast. I hope it's good.
I'm sure it's good. All right, let's continue. I'm going to mute everyone. Okay, so the dichotomy is that the Almighty created limitations, vessels, this world, because God desired a physical world, and that the physical world would feel seemingly its independence and then freely choose to do the will of God. That can only be achieved through concealment. For if godliness was revealed, we will not have free choice. The truth of God's all-encompassing essence and being will totally envelop us. Like if you were to take a match and hold it to the source of the fire, I would light a match from fire, right? Now if I take the match away from the match has some relevance. Can give off a little bit of a light, can be appreciated from, so to speak, its seeming distance. But when the match is next to the fire, if I throw it into the flame, it loses its identity and enveloped by its source, this grand and massive light. So too, if godliness was to be totally revealed, then we would lose our identity, so to speak. And it is God's will that we consciously choose and recognize godliness and choose physicality. By doing so, we actually draw down physicality to my most lowest and base points of my existence. That's the objective. But that we will discuss a little bit later. The dichotomy is that we have the capacity to be able to draw the infinite light of God, the unlimited light of God within the vessels themselves. The vessels themselves are limited. How can you possibly stick in 1,000,000 liters into a cup, into a bottle that only contains 1 liter? And even if you tell me that, well, we can expand the vessel, yes, and no matter how much you expand it, you're still a limited vessel. And here we are saying that it is possible for a Jew to be able to draw down the infinite light despite the fact that we exist in the finite, limited realm that we live on in this world, in my body, etc., etc., etc. How's that possible? Just very briefly. Because the divine will to have a body or a world, or again, what we call Kabbalistically as vessels, that divine will even preceded the light. Because since that was the ultimate divine will, since my original thought will be the outcome, correct? So the outcome, whatever that outcome is rooted in my original thought or my original desire. Even though the end result may be very, very low, the whole mechanism of creating this world and the system of revelation and concealment, or what's called the order of descent, is such that God first concealed his godly light and then caused a diminished godly light to begin the process of revelation and contraction, revelation, contraction, etc., etc., etc. The fact that there is a physical world and a physical body is rooted in the most highest plane. Now, that's the divine will. And therefore, to a certain degree, Even though the body or the vessel has immense limitation compared to the light or the soul, nonetheless, it is a reflection of the divine will. And Kabbalistically speaking, it is rooted in what's called the Rishimu. It is rooted in the remnants of light that God, when he concealed, so to speak, himself, there was a smidgen of the divine light of the Or Ein Sof that remained behind, like a residue. Like, for example, if you take olive oil and you place it into a vessel and then you empty out the olive oil from that vessel, you get that residue. Now, even though you may come along and you'll say to yourself, well, that olive oil was too potent and powerful, I'll fill it with a watered down olive oil, olive light. Now, even though I'm filling the vessel with this new oil, which is diminished, but it's a lot. The olive oil that was there before, the residue of the olive oil, is the original olive oil, even though it's a smidgen of it. It's the original. The Kabbalists teach us that is the source of the body or this world, or what we call, again, vessels. Which means that the vessels themselves are rooted in a very, very high place. Yes, as they are created in this world, and they're brought down to this world, it becomes so diminished that it's a body, and a body's coarse, and it wants physical things and not spiritual things, etc. And it is extremely limiting, and can even, God forbid, desire and want to do things contrary to the will of God, or its very existence is contrary to God, because it wants physical things, even if they are permissible. It wants it for its own sake. It wants it for its pleasure, for its own pleasure, because the body is self-absorbed, doesn't think about godliness, doesn't think about there's a divine spark in what we're eating, or that we can translate that energy into spiritual activities, energy, etc., spiritual energy, etc., and by doing so uplift the world. Doesn't think about that, thinks about itself. That's a nice cake. I feel like a nice cappuccino right now. Doesn't think about that the cappuccino is an opportunity to say a blessing with heartfelt meaning and intention, and utilizing it as a tool to connect to God. So the very body itself is coarse, the way it finds itself here. But it's coupled with a soul or a spark, and that its redeeming quality. However, having said that, despite that, the soul can so affect its connection with the body, it can draw down godliness, the Sovev Kol Almin, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, even within the vessel. This is the dichotomy, this is the Hidush, the novelty. Now, our question was, how is that possible? How is it possible to do such a thing? Because the body itself has a dimension of unlimited God as well. And that is what we're revealing. By denying the body its bodily functions and bodily will and bodily desires, what are you in effect doing? You are concealing its limitation, and you are revealing its unlimited nature, i.e., a vessel, a body. Let's use the word vessels, because it refers to all aspects of all worlds. A vessel has two dimensions. It has its revealed dimension, and it has its concealed dimension. What is its revealed dimension? Its limited form, its limited structure, its nature, what it does, what it is, with all of its limitations. A particular vessel, a cup, is only this wide, this high, contain this much, can contain hot but not cold, or vice versa, cold and not hot. It can contain a little bit of hot but not too much. Too much will melt it away. It has its limitations. So too it has its spiritual limitations. It can only contain a certain amount of godliness. Were it to contain any more godliness, it would cease to exist as a cup and will be enveloped in God's godliness. Like my body. If my body would be revealed its source, it would no longer be a body. It would be just a spirit. It'll be what my body was in its spiritual source originally. Everybody understand that? Good. So that it's defining characteristic right now, here and now. Limitation, body, vessel, whatever. Its spiritual unlimited nature, or its source, is concealed. What we do when we interact with it, let's use the body as the best example. My body wants to sleep in. But I get up in the morning to pray to Hashem, to acknowledge Hashem, to study Torah. My body wants to go and lay on the beach, or whatever it is, or to eat this, or to do this. And let's even use examples, things that are prohibited, for example. That's what my body wants. But by refining it and training it and introducing to it spirituality, the concealing limitations of the body is somewhat diminished, and a little bit of its true identity or source, at least a little bit, is expanded or revealed. The more you do that, the more it becomes refined and can contain spirituality, godliness, unlimitedness of God. So you with me on that? That's the objective. And it's a possibility. And the reason why it's a possibility is because A, we have a soul that sees God beyond the intellect. And B, the body itself is also rooted in godliness. The way it is reflected now is like speech. It's a limited form of godliness. And it can only recognize in its current state a certain level of godliness, that there is a creator, that God exists, etc., etc. Beyond that, it needs the soul to assist us to turn it inside out, so to speak. To conceal what is revealed and to reveal what is concealed. What is revealed? Its coarse nature, its physical nature, its dimension of self-centeredness and self-absorptions and the sense of self. Incidentally, it's written in books. Why does the body feel a sense of self? Because it's rooted in the sense of self of the only self, the only existence, God. An animal doesn't feel its sense of self, doesn't have a sense of self per se. All it does is wants to eat, wants to drink. It doesn't have this ego, so to speak, like man does. Man has this ego because he's rooted in the singular identity of the whole world, which is godliness. In other words, we're rooted in the highest level. That's why we feel a sense of self. No other entity feels that. But the objective is to nullify this sense of self to your true sense of self. And that is the all-pervading existence of God, which is your true self. In other words, you're revealing your source. And this is possible, but it needs a few ingredients. That is to be refined. That is that we need the soul to reveal to it and to turn it inside out, as we mentioned before. And we need the Torah. Because the Torah does not change like the body or even the soul changes in order to equip it to enter this physical world, to allow it to enter this physical world. The Torah is the same. The fact that the Torah is enclosed in intellect and in physical commandments and physical explanations is only the garment. No matter what coat I wear, I'm the same me. I'm just wearing a different garment. I'm wearing a blue one, I'm wearing a red one, I'm wearing a gray one, or a black one. It's the same me. So the garments of the Torah are physical. They're not the same garments as they are in the Garden of Eden. The souls that study Torah in the Garden of Eden or revealed to what the inner secrets of the Torah are not revealed in the same garments as what we study today, physical laws and ideas and explanations. It's much more sublime. How much more so in higher and higher levels in the higher and higher worlds. But the fact that it is God's Torah and it's brought down to this world, despite the fact that it has physical garments, so to speak, it's just the garments. It makes no difference whether you hold the king, whether he's wearing one garment or wearing two garments, whether he's wearing the royal robe or his pajamas. You are still embracing the king or the king embraces you. The Torah is the same, meaning to say, it's the same Torah. When one studies Torah, one is now connected to the very source and root of the Torah, which is godliness. That refines and empowers the body to be able to ultimately do the seeming impossible, and that is to be able to contain unlimitedness. To reveal the infinite light. Remember, right now the infinite light is not revealed. Right now we only see the light that is invested and is enclosed in the world, like the soul. There's a part of my soul that is beyond me. It's not enters my body because it's too powerful to enter my body. Cannot be confined to my body. When we say enter my body, I mean revealed in the body. The soul is not limited to inside body, outside body, etc., etc. I don't feel that part of my soul because it's just too sublime, too high. But with effort and toil, I can connect and feel that part of the soul too. So too it is with the world as well. There is a part of godliness that is enclosed in the world, and that is very limiting, very limited. But there is a possibility that we can connect to the energy, that the source of that godly source of energy. And that is the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. And this is what he's telling us through the Shema, the recitation of the Shema. That's the teaching that he's teaching us. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord being Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, the tetragrammaton name, the name that is the name that is symbolizes He was, He is, and He will be, i.e. higher than all limitations. The name of the infinite light, Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Elokeinu can be our God, meaning to say our power. Our God is another word or another expression of my nature, of an intimate relationship with me. Elokeinu, my God, my power, my being, my everything. Okay, let us now continue on the new paragraph in page 202. V'hine yidiyat v'hasagat davar zeh. Behold, this knowledge and this grasping of this concept, shehashem Elokeinu, that the tetragrammaton, that the infinite light is our very nature, our very power. In other words, there is beyond that which enlivens me, there is that which is beyond that, and I can have a relationship to that as well. That idea, that concept that is explained through the Shema, that is expressed through the Shema, that means that kohenu v'hayutenu, that our strength and my life force, hu havaya, is the tetragrammaton name, the infinite light, shelemala mizman u'makom, that is higher than time and place, hu ba al yedei ha'itbonenut, comes about through the meditative power of the mind in the recitation of the Shema. So when we say Shema Yisrael, we're not just to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad and say a verse and we're done with and very nice. It is actually an invitation to meditate and ponder everything that we just mentioned before, and more, as we will soon see. Meditate and think about it. Shema, the word Shema does not only mean hear, heed. Heed what you're just saying. Heed means to say understand, grasp, which means that the mind can grasp and understand, accept and absorb what we're talking about now. And thus, by doing so, the more we absorb it, the more we lead our lives differently, the more our perception of godliness is differently, our relationship to God is also different. And this comes about through first thinking, because thinking will then be a channel to even further expansion of this concept to the soul. But since we have a body, that's our first starting point. I can't just access the soul straight away unless your belief in God and your connection to God is just absolutely with pure simplicity. Those who are simple, sometimes the more intellectual you are, and the more smart you are in a way, is more of an impediment in a way. Not an impediment in understanding God, that's a beautiful thing, but it's an impediment to the soul. Sometimes people who are of pure faith, Doesn't mean to say that they're dumb, they're stupid. So they believe in everything. Like Shlomo, like King Solomon says, Peti amin lechol davar. A simpleton believes in everything. Yeah, there is that dimension as well. But there is another dimension as well. For every single individual, even a simpleton has a soul. And that soul knows and recognizes God. We will all agree that a baby, a newborn baby, doesn't have the faculty of intellect yet, correct? We'll all agree. How much can he understand? Does he understand that this is his mother or not his mother? Why she's the mother or not the mother? No. Yet it's proven that they've made a test, that they've taken the milk of different mothers, and they've given it to a particular type of baby, and every single time the baby always prefers his own mother's milk. Why? Because there is a connection to his mother that is beyond his intellect, that is not limited to his intellect. So too with every single Jew. Despite our intellectual prowess and capacity and capabilities. However, the starting point for a questioning person is to be able to understand it intellectually. Someone who doesn't have questions, someone who doesn't have doubts, someone who doesn't have problems, someone whose level of faith is great, can access the soul quicker and faster, if you know what I mean. But we who have questions, who have doubts, who think that we are very smart and intellectual, then we have to be able to relate to that and use that, because it is the divine will that every aspect of me recognizes God, and every aspect of me does not pose an impediment to my understanding God and relating to God. So intellect is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's a very good thing. It has its limitations. It also has the fact that it likes to justify what I do or what I like to do. It also has that as well. But it also is a limitation. And it, in a way, limits the soul, the revelation of the soul. However, since I have this, I must utilize it to be able to understand and ponder. And by doing so, the eventual goal and the hope is that I will actually reveal the power of the soul. Because the power of the soul's recognition of godliness is not the same of the mind. Nonetheless, that is the starting point. And the starting point is, hear, O Israel, heed, understand, think, ponder, and meditate, that these concepts are acceptable and understood even by the mind. The concept that we mentioned before. That is, the infinite is our power, our strength, my very identity, my very being, my very nature. We will stop here and I will take questions.